This is a free podcast from the BBC. For more information, you can go to our website, bbc.co.uk/Radio 2.
The daylight dims, the stars last peep, and bedclothes crumple in a heap, as from their beds the togs all leap. For Wogan's back, with one accord the waking nation retunes to just one wireless station, a quiver with anticipation. For Wogan's back, as dawn's bright banners are unfurled across the hushed and breathless world, already insults are being hurled, yes? Wogan's back. Thank you, Sally Forth. What ho, me old youthful Eurovisionist. Ah, Chuffer, we haven't heard from you these many days. I'm still searching for the old white fiver. Larry's gone, you know, Chuffer. You'll never get it now. Hope you had a happy birthday on Friday. Nothing made it into the tabloids. I think we're safe. To mark such an occasion, I think it behooves me, as your mentor, to say a few words. I first remember meeting you when you were a child actor with Gainsborough Studios in the 40s. You played Margaret Lockwood's Bustle on more than one occasion. And then you went under the name of the Kilmuckridge Kid, and a fine knockabout comedian even then, specialising in such comic ditties as Washing the Turf Cutter's Ass, and When You Bend Down in the Hen House. You might even favour us with a few bars later. However, I felt your career was dealt a mortal blow the first time I showed you the studio canteen. You mean all this food is free? You piped up in your squeaky little brogue. And I had a pair of squeaky little brogues myself, yeah. Best shoes I ever had. I warned you you'd have to watch your figure, or you might or mightn't get the best parts. Not bothered, you said. I can always work on the radio. I can only guess whether that ever worked out for you or not. So in conclusion, many congratulations. You'll soon be old enough to move on to character parts. Yes, enough of that old nonsense. Well, indeed, the team is here. You'll be glad to know. And when I say team, I don't mean team, of course, because there's nothing team-like. There's no I in team. Always remember that. But this is my programme.
He's come back a bit eggy, isn't he?
Who's speaking?
Are you getting something in your headphones?
Well, just a little bit. I thought it was just you and me here. Frankly.
I must confess I almost lost the plot the first time I heard Cruella de Splot, being immediately afflicted with legs of jelly and the slight sensation deep in me belly, like an apparition from an ancient myth, eerily chanting, "Come to you, Ambith!" Did her presence fill my garret room like an evil portent of impending doom? Did monstrous dread gnaw away my soul and threaten to consume my spirit whole? Did it, Buffalo? For I'd seen the light. As Top Totty goes, she's a bit of all right.
More Crookie. Of that, please, Crookie.
And oh, Johnny, how good to see you. It can't be 6 weeks.
It is. Well, it's 5, the intervening 5. You know, every 6 weeks I
Are we never
turn
to see?
up.
Are we never to see the back of you?
No, I come in for my breakfast.
He loses weight when he's not on this show.
I do, yeah, I do. Well, I didn't get fed at home very much, you see.
Yeah, well, Duncan McGrathgrove says, "Good morning, laddie. You're quite right. Boggy does only work 1 week in 6. Has it not been 6 weeks since you were last with us? Have your holidays been cut short? Why turn on me like a rabid dog?"
You're such a big target.
The Wake Up to Walker show, they're calling it.
So are we boring you or something?
Anytime you're ready.
How you been, Lynn? All right?
I've been
It's been
fine.
quite a while since I've seen you, so you're looking well.
I don't know. Do you ever feel that something has lost its magic? Don't start eating just as soon as she...
That's all right. I haven't got to say anything
For
now.
heaven's sake. Standards.
It's like sitting next to a grumpy gnome eating a bacon sandwich, honestly.
And it'll be all over his beard as well.
Oh, God.
Ah, hurrah, you're back. We've missed you, Tell. I told Maisie, age 14 months this morning, you'd be back today, and I swear she said, "Terry?" As they say across here, welcome back, you hunk of spunk. Aren't they charming?
Nice, isn't it?
Yeah, lovely. And I was consigning the mound of ex-rainforest that goes by the name of the Sunday papers to one of the various bins that grace my back doorstep, says Ivy, no idea. As is normal under these circumstances, I had to retrace my steps to collect the plethora, of supplements, little bits of paper and advertisements that fall confetti-like when you pick up a Sunday newspaper. I was just about to dispose of the second load when my eye happened upon a small catalogue. On page 6, between the clockwork pot plants and incontinent slippers, there was an ingenious device that finally makes the job quick and easy. One press on the large non-slip cushioned handles, removes the stone and cuts the fruit neatly and cleanly in half. A mango splitter. The world has gone mad. So there's only one way to eat a mango, and that's you do your best standing naked in the kitchen sink. I ordered one immediately. Should be here this morning. I have my mangoes ready and waiting. Good for you, Ivy. I do hope the postie hurries up. As excited as I am at owning this incredible device, this stainless steel sink is getting very chilly on the old posterior. And as you heard in the news, people are having trouble with the snake. I'm trying to find a rather longish snake that's on the loose in Wales. Well, why don't you get Bernadette Barter says, your fellow countryman St. Patrick. Sure, he was originally Welsh anyway, on the job. He'll find the snake in no time. Didn't he banish thousands of them from Ireland? I've just checked me airing cupboard, says Samantha Janice's brother. That's Hugh. I've found several spiders, each the size of a small dog. But sadly, no 6-foot snakes. You can cross me house off the search list, OK? That you done then, Hugh? I read somewhere that the scene where we were talking about mangoes and somebody got a mango splitter, has ordered one and can hardly wait to stand naked in the kitchen sink with the mango splitter and prizing the little stone from the middle of this rather difficult fruit. I read somewhere, because I mentioned that the only person I've ever seen, as it were, dismember a mango successfully without covering themselves in the flesh, was Poirot. Well, it was put in the programme, says the batty blackbird of Berkshire, because David Suchet had been told the correct way to open one by no less than His Royal Highness Prince Philip, Duke of Edinburgh. I do like to mention royalty. And John Rayner, this morning you mentioned that one of your listeners had purchased a mango splitter. Well, I've had one for the past 14 years. Admittedly, the cost implications have been greater than your listeners, but my wife, Aleth, who was raised in the Philippines, manages to split mangoes perfectly, looks superb, and never breaks down. Wilting has been among us, as you know, gang, team.
Yes, with provender. Always welcome. I like him a lot.
He's a grand fellow, and he has a little poem. Gives a cold, said Lynn to Wogan. I think I'll have that as my slogan. Whereas Boggy Marsh, I fear, his slogan should be, giz a beer. He's never forgiven you.
No, never, ever forgiven me. In fact, I now would think with inflation, it's gone up to 2 pints, I allegedly, over the old fool.
Yeah. You're not making the mistake of coming to the convention, are you, in Bali?
This year, I am afraid I haven't.
Previous subsequent engagement.
I'll think of it in a minute, but I'm working hard. It's very important.
Did you remember you were talking on, in a rather tedious way, about being a member of the Boys' Brigade?
Yes, and the pillbox hat.
Yes, well,
it's not. Well, it was funny. Actually.
He claims he served in this regiment.
Yes.
Does he not know a Boys' Brigade hat is called a titfur?
Is it?
Well, I mean, it's Cockney rhyming slang. A cockney, a titfur, a tit for tat. The old hat.
No, I was trying to think of the more pointed ones that pointed at the front and the back, and someone did write in yesterday and tell me the name of this thing, which of course I've instantly forgotten.
Excuse me, I've got a producer shouting at me here. What do you want? Glengarry.
Glengarry. Both of those things.
But that's a poem by, indeed, a play by David Mamet.
I thought it was a
Glengarry, Glen Ross. There's a lot of shouting and cursing in it as well. Not
that's the Boys' Brigade, yes.
Kind of thing we want here to encourage here.
You get those tubers behind you. There's a lot of that going on.
Lollipop says, good morning. Can you just wait a few minutes while I shovel down me boiled egg and toast, drink me tea and sit myself in the middle of the garden where I cannot come to any harm? Okay. Yes. All right then. Very shortly we shall be doing Janet and John Go to the Theatre. Now, while I try and exercise.
I wonder what you were doing there.
Exercising.
Is that
exercising my legs?
What do you call it?
I like to put...
So you're supposed to sweat, aren't you, when you exercise?
No.
You're just lying back, smiling gently.
I gently glow. I don't sweat. Janet and John Go to the Theatre. Today, Janet and John are going to buy some tickets for the theatre. Do you like going to the theatre? John does. See the lovely costumes. See John putting on green embroidered silk doublet and hose and a hat with a big feather. John is a fop and a dandy. When they arrive at the booking office at the top of the theatre steps, Janet says, "Silly me! I forgot to go to the bank to get the money for the tickets. You stay here while I go back. Try not to get into trouble." "I won't," says John.
It's getting more
While John is waiting, he plays hopscotch in the alley beside the theatre. John likes hopscotch. I'm not a bit surprised. John hears voices coming from one of the doors at the side of the theatre and peeps inside. Some people are on the stage rehearsing a play. John pokes his head through the curtain. On the stage, John sees two ladies. He recognizes Mrs. White and Mrs. Parlett from the Amateur Dramatic Society. "Hello," says Mrs. White. "Are you..."
No, come, share it with us, please.
I don't know why this makes me laugh. "Hello," says Mrs. White. "Are you playing Polonius?" No, says John. "I'm playing hopscotch." Mrs. White says, "Why don't you come and join in? You already have the costume. All you have to do is read a few lines." John is good at reading. John has a part-time job reading the news. John sometimes gets the words wrong, but nobody minds. See John hop and skip up onto the stage. Mrs. McKenna, the producer, says, "We're putting on a play called Hamlet. Would you like to audition for a part?" "Yes, please," says John. John reads the lines for a man called Polonius. Mrs. White and Mrs. Parlett both clap loudly when John has finished. See John blush. "Thank you," says John. "I was very nervous before I started to read." Mrs. White says that was a very difficult speech and gives John a big smile. "I usually get nervous and quite often get a dry cough. I don't mind admitting that I have a glass or two of teachers before going on stage." Mrs. McKenna says, "I don't like where this is going at all." Mrs. McKenna says, "Don't listen to her. You should be able to play this part without a drink first." John says, "I thought she did very well considering her nerves." As soon as it's time for John to go, Mrs. White thanks John for speaking up for her and says that he should come back for rehearsals on Thursday. Mrs. Parlett said she'd be happy to help John with his lines and would make sure he got a part in the play. John waves goodbye to everyone, goes outside to meet Janet on the steps. Janet says, "Did you behave?" "Yes," says John. I was just in the alleyway and heard some people performing through an open door. So I went to watch. I saw Mrs. White. She was telling me that she gets a bit of a dry tickle, and I used to be quite nervous beforehand, but found that a couple of stiff teachers in the dressing room took her mind off it. She said she was delighted to see me sticking it up for her. And Mrs. Parlett said she'd be very happy to give me a hand with my part, especially as it was a bit of a mouthful."
That covers everything, really.
I think Mrs. McKenna looked pleased too. She didn't say much, but it was all over her face after my performance. See Janet push John down the theatre steps 7. God, we're all finished. We're doomed. It can't go on. Chuffer, good morning. Chuffer Dandridge, Shakespearean actor manager. I see, resting of course. What ho, me old skin and B-lister. I see that you're on the other side on Saturday night in Celebrity Who Wants to Be a Millionaire. Bound to happen sooner or later, you appearing on a show with celebrity in the title. All downhill from here. Mush. Mush. You'll soon be doing I'm a Celebrity in the Jungle set at Elstree. Or Celebrity, watch what I can do with this drinking straw and this bullfrog. And Celebrity be humiliated by a noisy American to lose weight. You soon won't feel complete until you're flanked by Ant and Dec like a Toby jug between a saucy condiment set. No. The cruelest blow of all was when they melted me down in Madame Tussauds, you know. And they made Ant and Dec out of me. I must congratulate you, says Ralphie, on your
Oh dear.
Your fresh and exciting approach to broadcasting. The smart nudity and filthy language is just what we were waiting for. Never mind a few of the old blue rinse brigades snorting their grumbles. We youngsters in our 50s are up for something more modern. I'm even growing to enjoy the faint whiff of Boggy's banana-flavoured body odour. Think forward. A brave new broadcasting company. Yes, indeed. We're doing our best here. You don't have to listen to this anyway. There's loads of other radio stations. I mean, loads of them. And there's a little switch on the radio. You can go to other radio stations if you want to.
You know what? I really don't think you should encourage them to switch off.
Really?
No.
Is that supposed to be bad policy?
I think it might be.
Oh, that's a strange view you have of broadcasting, isn't it?
No, sorry. Yeah. I'll never get anywhere.
No. I had to contact you to tell you, what have you been up to, you and Fran Godfrey, the terrible twos? Taken to terrorising the staff in pizza shops. Innocently standing in one such establishment waiting for me 9-inch Hawaiian surprise... when the aforementioned duo rushed into the premises. Look, it's all in the mind, all right? I'm only reading them.
Wasn't us, it was two women who looked like us.
Well, they asked the person behind the counter, do you do takeaways? And when the young lad behind the counter said, yes, they said, OK, what's 135 minus 26? And then promptly rushed back out again, leaving the poor lad a sobbing wreck. And he didn't have a calculator near him. This is cruel work.
We're not nice women, Fran and I.
Do you know, that won't come as any surprise to the regular listener. Oi, Logan! It's from Guy, who's the Deputy Assistant to the Good Dame Douglas. How good to hear. Is she still in harness, the Good Dame? Oh, she's left, I see, in a marked manner, for the holidays. Is she entitled to holidays? While you were skiving off last week, the Good Dame sent a reminder to all BBC staff that a new watchword is punctuality. She's never been in time for anything in her life. And that new kid, Johnny Walker, new guy on the block, was first to be penalised when he crashed the pips last Wednesday and had his sherbet dip confiscated. There's still bits of dust around the carpet. So, what with her ladyship wants to know is whether you're being late on the first day of the new term is a deliberate act of defiance. It's nothing of the sort, and I wish could we let it drop now? It wasn't my fault, sir. Officer. Now look, I don't know whether you've recovered from the Janet and John story this morning, but many of us are hoping that we'll be able to hold on to our jobs. But if you do fancy the long-awaited Janet and John Reloaded, Volume 2 of the Radio 2 Janet and John Tales, the very place to get them would be www.togscalendar.org. 15 quid per CD. Michael Smith, great friend of mine, he got a couple and is spreading them about. The double CD is 16 stories on CD 1 and a bonus CD with an exclusive recording by Beth Nielsen Chapman and some fine work by Ken Bruce and outtakes and mistakes mainly from the Aegis reading the news at the moment. And that it's grand. Well, you could send a cheque for 15 quid, made payable to Togs Calendar, and posted to that, P.O. Box 695, Newport, South Wales, NP24ZU. I'll be reminding you of that, of course, because it makes millions for children in need. And again, I can't say it often enough, every penny goes straight to the children. I hope you enjoyed your holidays. Very kind. Too kind, Bruce. Pass along the advice below to the male members of your audience. A sort of public service announcement. Otto is writing. Otto B. Workin in Bristol. Fine. This is the word women use to end an argument when they are right and you need to shut up. 5 minutes. If she's getting dressed, this means a half an hour. 5 minutes is only 5 minutes if you've just been given 5 more minutes to watch the game before helping around the house. Nothing. This is the calm before the storm. This means something and you should be on your toes. Arguments to begin with nothing usually end in fine. Is it me? How do you find this sign by the River Ouse in Selby, North Yorkshire slightly amusing? Well, now that the floods have subsided a bit, and there was nothing funny about them, this big sign, culled for me by Graham Hodge of Selby, is River Rescue. In the event of falling into the river, dial 999 and ask for police and fire, indicating you need river rescue. Dial 999 up to your armpits in water. Thank heaven, says Libby T. Bodice, for the tog. Yes, we've had a bit touches of the old ranting going on this week about people who say H and sat. I heard it on the telly only last night. Or was sat what? So please, It's pernickety. We're being pernickety. The one that sends me into orbit, almost as much as the glottal stop, is the childlike pronunciation of words with a soft T. Instead of saying hospital, they'll say hospital, or kettle, bottle. Drives me crazy. Happens a lot on regional TV news programmes, as does through instead of through, and with instead of with. Better go now, innit? Before I get them all wound up. Know what I mean? Yeah. I've been listening with great interest to your erudite debate on the correct usage. In particular, I found your debate on the merits of sit and sat particularly riveting, says Nanook of the North Circular. As a Scotsman living in the land of the Morris dancer and still learning the language, I feel I can turn to none other than your good self to explain the addition of the letter R in phrases such as a raw egg or law and order. Is this correct? Perhaps Mr. Marsh, with his adequate command of spoken English, would care to comment. I don't think so. We're not encouraging Mr. Marsh. He gets us into trouble. Yesterday you were discussing bad grammar. No need to remind you, we're now, as of next weekend, we're entering the soccer season. And the pundits, the past soccer stars come out with statements like what he done last season, or when he come on at half-time, not to mention with the ball. He can't play without the ball, you know. Kenneth Wostanome. He'd never have put up with it.
Sometimes you get quite carried away, don't you?
Oh, look, Major Hoo-Ha is writing a little song. Anybody know Bobby Shafto? Boggy Marsh has gone to seed. Is that it? Boggy Marsh has gone to seed. Well, once there was Denham, now there's Tweed. For help with the stairs, now there's a need. Poor old Boggy Marsh, oh, Boggy Marsh in a dressing gown, wanders round old Luckfield town, worries sheep in Hadlow down. Poor old Boggy Marsh, oh.
I should never have encouraged him, should I? Never learn.
Don't tell him the tune.
Don't tell him your name. Manny Stone says, proprietor of the Shingle View Retirement Home, Dungeness. Sad, dear Mr. Marsh, sad to read in your letter you do not intend returning to the Shinglefield Retirement Home, but after hearing your latest involvement in smut on the radio, I feel that this could be for the best.
Oh, that's not very nice. You know, I try and maintain standards here, but I'm constantly dragged down and influenced by those around me.
Boggy Marsh has standards. They're just really low.
Janet and John go to the park.
Oh, no.
It's a lovely day today, so Janet and John are going to the park.
I'm not skipping.
Janet says, you'd better put on some old clothes if you're going to play on the swings and climbing frame. See John put on a 19th century velvet frock coat, top hat, striped trousers and spats. Do you know what a popinjay is? Janet does. On the way to the park, Janet has to put on John's reins, as he's very excited. He keeps running into the road. When they arrive at the park, the sun is shining. Some children are playing rounders. John hops and skips over to the playground. What fun! And Janet says, I'm just popping off to pick up some lunch. I'll be back in about a half an hour. See John wave goodbye to Janet. When John is having fun on the swings, he sees Mrs. Randall from the stationery shop putting up a sign on a tree. Hello, Mrs. Randall, says John. He's awful, isn't he? Hello, John, says Mrs. Randall. What fun. Why are you putting up signs in the park? Mrs. Randall says, I made the signs at work because I lost my little dog earlier. When I was taking her for a walk. She's a dandy dinmont. Oh, God.
You can do it. I suppose you wouldn't.
If you see her...
He just has.
Give me a call on the number on the sign. I just had a premonition.
I'm going to eat my breakfast. I could be here all day.
Do you think Twinkle is a silly name for a dog? John does. You have lots of signs, says John. Yes, says Mrs. Randall. They're all reproductions of a design I did on my computer. It's what I do at work when I'm not helping out in the office equipment department. Clever Mrs. Randall. And John says, I'll keep my eye out for your little dog. Kind John. See John get off the swing and look in some bushes for Mrs. Randall's dog. A little later, John is standing at the top of the slide, pretending to be king of the castle, when he sees Mrs. Hill. Mrs. Hill has a little dog with her. The little dog looks like the one Mrs. Randall lost. John runs over to Mrs. Hill.
"Hello, Mrs. Hill. Is that your dog?"
Mrs. Hill says, "No, I just found her wandering on the other side of the park. Do you know who she belongs to?"
"Yes,"
says John, and shows Mrs. Hill the sign. "I have to go back to work," says Mrs. Hill. "Perhaps you could take care of her." John takes the little dog, goes to the telephone box and calls Mrs. Randall. Mrs. Randall's very happy, rushes over to the park. Mrs. Randall thanks John and says, "If you ever want any printing or enlargements done, do come to see me and I'll do them for free. I might even be able to do you a special price on a swivel chair." John likes swivel chairs. John likes to spin around until he feels sick. See John wave goodbye to Mrs. Randall. Soon John sees Janet coming back with her shopping. "Have you been a good boy?" says Janet.
"Yes," says John. "I was doing a bit of swinging, and I was talking to Mrs. Randall. She wanted to know if I'd seen her twinkle, so I had a quick look. But the undergrowth was a bit bushy to see much. Then I saw Mrs. Hill. I recognised her dandy Dinmont from the top of the slide. She was in a bit of a hurry, so I took charge and gave a reassuring stroke and a quick tickle while I waited for Mrs. Randall to come back. And when I saw Mrs. Randall again, she said that if I ever needed anything enlarged, I should pop in. She specialises in reproduction and sometimes comes under office equipment. She said she could probably do something in a swivel chair if I was really interested." See Janet borrow a rounder's bat. See John run. Run, John, run. Actually, my nose is running out. Anyway, Inverness. I was thinking of a riposte, but I thought, no, I'll never get away with that.
The censor works.
Good morning, Togmeister, and hello, sailor.
Do you sometimes get the feeling you'd never opened your mouth?
Yes.
I should know better.
It's a fairly permanent thing with me. I didn't know Boggy was into sailing. Is it an ocean-going yacht, a fishing smack, or a rowboat? Were you involved in the Dunkirk business? Are you...
It's not a smack, it's more a gentle slap.
Is it?
Yes.
A slapper?
It's one of those little paddle swans, isn't it? Come on.
Yeah. Oh, did I hear Lynn's Gizzacole?
Gisco.
Bowls? Oh, it's Juffer.
Oh, hello,
Mentioned my old chum Clackett Lane services yesterday. He was an anti-smoking campaigner who ended up in showbiz. A marvellous act, knocking cigarettes out of the audience's mouth with a whip. Trouble was, he was more inclined to indulge in this sort of behaviour off stage. His slogan was, "Cut down on smoking with a cut lip." He used a massive bullwhip to relieve people of pipes. Can someone give a call to Lynn if they don't have traffic news?
Okay.
Give a call. Can they give you a call about anything they like?
Well, generally they do, to be honest.
Or would that only add fire to the fraudulent phone-in controversy?
Oh, no, I hadn't thought
Don't
of that.
mention that.
No.
With a hop, skip and a jump and occasional grump, Boggy can get any crowd wild and rowdy. With his velveteen knickerbockers and bejewelled codpiece shockers, he would have made Liberace look dowdy. He's an interesting way with a fragrant nosegay, and his whatnots are always quite lacy, for a fop of his ilk loves his skin next to silk, though his habits can be rather racy. How very true this is. People can get to the very nub of things, can't they?
It's not true at all. You know, if there is a medallion man of Radio 2, I am he. Where this fop business came from, I have no idea.
Show us your whatnot. Ooh.
When he's affecting the mince of a pantomime prince, it's best not to hobnob with this dandy. Oh, it's not Dandy Dinmont again. Take a tip from poor Janet, the bravest lass on the planet. Make sure there's a rolling pin handy. That's Crookie.
Yeah. Some people know too much about me, I think. This time I stopped giving away personal bits of information.
Well, Fletcher Christian is writing from one of the islands in the far Pacific. I hears that old Boggy be a-taking to the water this weekend. And has a selection of headgear as befits the occasion. One cap in particular with the legend Skipper embroidered upon it. Ha-ha! I'm reminded of another bearded sailor, Uncle Albert, from Only Fools and Horses.
Yeah, I suppose there are similarities.
You and Captain Birdseye.
I'm not going anywhere, though. I'm just polishing it. Bit of
Okay. Okay, let's get on. Let's have the travel. Quickly.
Oh, dear.
I'm going to avert my eyes.
That's high. There's a high standard of professionalism here, isn't there?
I think the standard has been set a few months ago.
Yes, indeed.
Happy to see it continue.
Yes, indeed. It's always in control. That's the thing. So, we know you're a font of all knowledge. You just watch your language, Jan. What nautical tips have we for Boggy's boating trip this weekend? He's not going anywhere. He's polishing it. And will you tell him to splice the main brace, watch where he puts the winch handle, and dress correctly? No silver Cuban heels, feather boas, or frilled shirts. Well, maybe one or two frills on your sailor suit.
Maybe.
Have you got a sailor suit since you're going a-sailing?
Not yet. It's on order. It's still being made. They didn't have one big enough in the shop at the time.
I can't wait to see you in it. And you'll be going now we won't see you for another 5 weeks or...
Yeah, I think probably something like that. I'll be around at other times, of course.
Oh, will you?
Radio 2 broadcasts 24 hours a day, and there are other programmes.
Are there? What?
That's come as a shock to you, isn't it?
Listen, I'll leave you with the uplifting thought.
Yes.
That after Janet and John was broadcast yesterday to the disgust of millions, over 1,000 Janet and John Reloadeds were sold.
Oh, that's fantastic. Absolutely fantastic.
For children in need. Johnny, we'll see you when we see you.
Indeed, look forward to it
and
enormously.
count the very hours.
Shall I pipe you aboard, sir?
Hello, we're off.
This was a podcast from BBC Radio 2. Don't forget you can also download free podcasts for Steve Wright, Russell Brand and Chris Evans. Get more information now at bbc.co.uk/Radio 2 and wake up to Wogan every weekday morning from 7:30, online, on digital and on 88 to 91 FM.
Wake up to Wogan!